All right. So we're going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes or so going through our system, threats, what they look like, and some scenario-based or recent history on what's showed up in some private organizations in the private home and some of our clients' threats. So the first things first, if you've not seen this before, we use collimated light, millimeter wave, terahertz imaging. So it's non-ionizing, doesn't hurt anybody or anything. There's no certification requirements, no training requirements past what we do from the company to our clients, and it can go anywhere. So we have clients that take this into their headquarters. It goes through the executive protection team. They'll move it off to the EP or CEO's house or whatever facility they're trying to screen at, and essentially just use it to make sure that things aren't getting in and around their primary protectees. So if you used X-ray before, you know that when you put an item inside of the screening area and you start imaging it, you start moving items around inside, you get distortion of what's inside of the package. So if you put a weapon per se in the back of a backpack and you X-ray it, it's going to be larger if it's farther from the package, or smaller if it's closer to the imager. So with this, we don't have that problem. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. It's collimated light. So your screener doesn't make a difference where they screen at. So the next thing we look at, that's a nylon knife in our 1-to-1, and then in our zoom mode, that's the butt end of it. So there's two screening areas. You'll see me flip back and forth between the two of them, and just not to get confused. Please, if you guys have questions, please ask in the chat. Maybe Philip can help me out because I can't see it from where I'm standing at. What we work on is a basic fundamental that human beings are great at finding things, and they're really good at identifying change. So once somebody works in an organization or works inside of a facility long enough, they know what normal is. We've trained them to work on normal versus abnormal, and then they call our service when they find something that's out of the ordinary. But when you're looking at packages, they should make sense to you. So this, for example, adhesive strip on the back, 10 sheets of paper on the side, all the edges are straight, everything makes sense. And that's what it should look like. Nothing's going to jump out and cause anybody to ask any questions, okay? When you start seeing threats, they start looking obviously outside of the normal. So this is 2,500 milligrams of powder inside of a package. This is quite common for most organizations to have if they are being targeted because it's easy. You don't have to present yourself in front of a counter or talk to anybody. You can throw some stamps on it, no matter what country you're in, and drop it in. The Tunisian president yesterday came out, was hit with a ricin attack in the headquarters. Our president, or our former president, the White House was hit earlier last year. Subway headquarters were hit last year as well. White powder events happen all the time. They're very common. Unfortunately, they're one of the most common threats out there, and they're real hard to find. So before you open the package, if you could get a good identification of what the threat is, it's usually quite helpful. This is hard to find through visual and tactile inspection because you can't feel it. It doesn't have enough mass, and it's going to be hard to find in an X-ray as well. Not impossible, but it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to take multiple shots just because there's not a lot of mass for any energy to interact with. It'll oftentimes just pass through it, okay? Smaller amounts of powder. This is more likely what hit the president of Tunisia 2 days ago. This is what it'll look like. So normal edges, 10 sheets of paper, everything makes sense. Usually everything lines up, but you have corners that have excess material jammed up in them. Due to friction, because of the two pieces of cardboard touching itself in the corner, gravity, people normally carry things right side up, so it will normally force things to the bottom. They start standing out. This is 100 milligrams of powder. So that's not something that you're going to find. That's not something that you're going to see until it's opened up and exposed, generally on the target's lap. So the first one with 2,500 milligrams, that'll usually go after a facility, not necessarily a named individual, somebody in shipping or HR. There's a lot of layoffs due to COVID. So those usually are insider threats, somebody who knows the facility and knows where things are and knows who works where. These generally go after CEOs or go after people by name, and you'll find them on a regular basis. Liquid threats, very common. Caustic materials, flammable materials, somebody trying to get illicit items from point A to point B. We have a problem with this around our area right now with liquid drugs because it's easier to take your liquid cocaine, meth, or whatever, or powdered, put it into a liquid form, dissolve it, put it inside of a vacuum sealed pack, seal it nice and tight, and then decontaminate the outside of it. And if anybody's doing any screening or looking during a point check or they're trying to swab test something, nothing of the packaging will ever have seen the item that they're trying to hide. So to get an X-ray with the liquid, you're going to need to take at least two, put the X-ray in, put the item in, check your X-ray, pull it back out again, change the orientation of the package, reintroduce it, and when you do that, you look for liquid line change. That's timely, costly, and it's somewhat, well, it's not necessarily the easiest way to find liquid when you can just see it. When you're looking at point screening or doing anything that is not necessarily flats or normal mail, and that happens all the time, packages come and go with the way we live now. One thing that helps is when you can identify what the package is through different orientations or angles. When you're looking at something dead on, oftentimes you only get the one profile, or if it's presented to you at an angle that doesn't necessarily make sure you can see what you're looking at, as most people will when they try to get something through X-ray, say at the airport. That happens all the time, or people try to smuggle stuff through. That's because the individual that's putting their bag down, you're the one that gets to decide what angle they present the screeners with. So at least well, I've flown all over the world, but I'll use TSA here in the States for an example. They don't touch your bag. It goes inside the gray bin. You slide it in. That's what you present the screener with. Then if something's questionable, they'll push it to, might do a hand search after that, but that's what gets them to the hand search. If you can control that orientation, oftentimes you can get stuff through. Because we can move, change, and adjust the items inside the field of view, you always get a much better approach of what's going on. You get a much more dynamic image of what you're trying to look through. So we're going to go through an incident or what something looks like when a threat shows up and how it often, whether it's EP, corporate, or just in a normal company's organizational operations, how they handle a threat, how they interact with us, for example, or would interact with another person or another security element. So when something shows up and it looks questionable, this looks like a pipe bomb. It is a pipe bomb. It should look questionable. When something like this shows up, we ask our clients to do 15 seconds extra with the item. Yes, it looks questionable, but that package has been carried, put in boxes, moved to the back of trucks, dropped all over the place. We're looking for 15 seconds to do one thing, just to capture an image. So we start recording the video, and we ask them to gather whatever made them question it. 10, 15 seconds with it, nothing too timely. And once that's done, they're finished. They can leave. They don't have to be next anymore. The system allows us to dial in remotely and view what's going on. Most of our clients choose to do it with an LTE modem, so we drop it on top of the system. It's essentially air gapped. Our clients, we don't need to see behind their firewall. No IT people are ever involved. It's a standalone system inside the screening facility. So that happens. They hit the record button. We dial into it remotely and take a look at what's going on. That video, we review with the screener, and we have a conversation with them saying essentially, what made you question the package? The screeners are really good because they know what normal is. We talked about that at the beginning. Normal vice abnormal. They're also really good because they have a gut instinct. If you've ever been in a large incident or accident, after something's over and you do an after action review or you do a hot wash or whatever you want to call it, there's almost always somebody standing there saying, hey, something felt weird. I don't know what it was. I can put my finger on it, but something's wrong. We lean into that. We want to talk to people about what they have going on. Once we have that conversation, we know what got them to question it. We start talking to the security lead. We take this video, we upload it, and then we cut into a bunch of from an MP4 to a bunch of JPEGs. So we can look at all the wires, everything that we see in like a panoramic mode. The next thing that we'll do is take a look at the background and make sure that there's no radiological threats. I'm going to violate this one with a beta gamma source real quick, so you can see what it'll look like. It's running passively in the background. We set this based on wherever our clients are, what the normal background is. We remove that part of it. But for the States, we use EPA and OSHA levels for a normal office environment. You do want to know if something does come in or out that's radiological, but oftentimes that could also be something legitimate. If you order 50 handheld metal detectors, or you've got a bunch of smoke detectors, californium, americium, whatever, there's radiation in our daily life. But if it's something that hazardous, it'll give you the alert. Let me close this. So we check that. If that alert does go off on our clients, we essentially tell them, put the package down and walk away. The readings that we're getting, the strength, and the distance that the package is from the sensor in the system, we can essentially tell what it is and then help hazmat or first responders when they show up. If it's something ridiculously bad, stay times, how long you can stand next to that package, or if it's hazmat, hey, take a good look, you might need this precaution or that precaution. The last thing that we do to collect that information is we pull up the image of the package itself. So from this, we pull barcodes, cancellation stamps, tracking numbers, who it's from, who it's to, coalesce all this information together and give it to our security leads that we're working with on site. And like I said, it doesn't make a difference where it is. All the data can be collected and it's all useful. If you put this in an EP realm, you know who you are protecting, obviously, and you know who the individuals that are generally threats are. So before anybody has to reintroduce themselves in front of this package, you could do some research. And okay, what's historically been sent by this person? If it's in the corporate environment, it's much the same thing. You have a larger list, but HR becomes important because they need to track who's been recently let go, or there's just more information to pull together. All this data is put together, given to our security leads. So if they do have to deal with first responders, they have more in their back pocket. If you look at 100 incidents, 95% of the time, they're nothing. They're nothing. Nothing ever happened. It was just something weird. Somebody hit a button. The 5% that remains, 4% of those, or 4, those things are legitimately funny looking. 2 wires and a battery in a box. Why would that ever show up in the mail? It looks questionable, but it's not going to do anything to anybody. So though 99% of the time, we can remove false positives immediately. Nobody ever gets evacuated. Nobody gets alerted. No first responders are called. It's just removing the threat from your front door without having to run through the whole gambit of possible solutions. The 1% that remains, hoaxes, legitimate threats, illicit items, those are another set of decisions gets made, but they get made in an informed way. So the first problem that you look at is it going to jump up and bite somebody? Is it going to hurt anybody? If the answer is yes, first responders, you have all that data and you control the scenario when they show up because you've got information to show them. If the answer is no, there's other ways to mitigate that risk. And that's dependent upon where you are in the world, locally, there's different ways to solve it. The big thing to take away, besides all the false positives that we can stop from happening, is that time when you have to call the first responders when they show up. When you give them a packet of information on a package, instead of me in my previous life as the bomb squad, walking in on a suspect package, that's all I have, I'm going to go in with a disruptor, and I'm going to go in with an X-ray. If I pull up on site instead and you give me images, pictures, videos, data, I'm probably going with a knife in a rope, and it's going to get returned to you much quicker because you've given me more data to make an informed decision, and there's not a blind shot going on. So overall, the system weighs about 80 pounds. Like I said, it's non-ionizing, so it goes in any location that you want to move it into. It is mobile. It shows up on a crate that has a set of wheels, and it's ruggedized and meant for this. It takes about 5 minutes to set up, and it's benign. It does nothing to an environment. There's nothing that you can put into it that it's going to hurt. We have clients that put it in the pool houses next to where their kids play, and we have it in warehouses inside of larger businesses and facilities. That's the general overview of the system. Operations, very straightforward, and threats, pretty easy to find. Pelham, is there anything coming up with questions?
Yeah, but actually, your colleague Cody was sort of helping us out with it. But I think it's a good question to sort of highlight to everybody. Mirza asks, is it AI enabled? And of course, we know AI is a broad spectrum of a term enabled. Yes, to label the images of items. And then what about exposing your hands? And you just talked about the non-ionizing radiation.
So it's safe to your hands, it's safe to everything. The AI question is actually very good. So what we have currently on the machine is machine vision. So that's lie detection assistance. It's going to be out Q2, Q3 of this year. You actually see it the next set of trade shows. We have it in beta, and it does work. The true vision of AI, we also have that working through with an NSF grant. That's something we're looking at in the next probably FY, because it's a little bit bigger application. But we've trained it with 4,000 images, and it will tell you with pretty good certainty up in the 90 percentile range of whether you're looking at a possible threat or not, depending upon the question that you ask it. And it's a true question of AI versus machine learning. Machine learning is now, AI we're still working on.
Okay, I like it. I like it. And actually, Mirza raised an interesting question. I think it's quite thoughtful. If packets are exposed to water during transit, like rain, can it then make screening difficult?
Not really, no. So as long as it's dry, if you put something wet in here, you'll have density change. But if it's been exposed to rain or whatever, that's not going to be a problem. Liquid can cause issues with something inside if it reacts. So say you do have a powder threat or a powdered item, and it does go in and becomes cake when it gets wet and dries back out. It'll look different. It won't move as freely. But overall, no, that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, no, that's great, and I like this topic a lot. I think it's going to tie in nicely. We're going to have the topic of the EP professional at home for the high net worth coming up. We've had reflections on the maritime industry where everyone's on the move and may need to look at their mail on the move.
That's another thing, Philip, is this thing, we've got clients that do that. So we've got them in the back of Suburbans, backs of Gulfstreams. We've got I don't think we have a boat yet, but I know we don't have a boat yet. That'd be a good one to do. It's lightweight and it works on an inverter. So no matter where you put it, it'll function. The only thing you have to think about is you're going to pull about the same amount of power as a laptop. And if you think about hazards, it's like a printer. Don't drop it on your foot.
Oh, same power as a laptop. I like that. Oh, that's really good. Well, great to have Cody earlier to doing the presentation, and great to welcome you back, Will, for the demo. I know we've got several of your colleagues nearby. Nancy is here. I think Nancy, you've been here the whole day, so thank you very much. And how would people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
That's pretty easy. Will@racesecure.com is one, and right off our website, there's connection sport, racesecure.com, and then we could pass out my information after this. I'll put it in the chat window when I get out in front of this camera.
Fantastic. And we've got nice comments. Miranda says, great presentation, Will. Mirza says, great to see the demo. Thanks, Will. Yeah, it's great. And I love spicing things up with the demo. That's nice. Thanks ever so much. I will catch you soon.
That sounds great.
Awesome. So yes, we got the link there. Nancy has put it there. Fantastic. And we've of course got that very nice 60-second video in the Discord channel for you as well, if you'd like to see it. Isa says, good presentation, Will. So great all round. Very, very nice to spice things up. As I said, obviously there is death by PowerPoint, but there is a place for PowerPoint, and there's a place for that combination of training and hands-on, and we're really maximizing this virtual format to be international and to bring lots of different perspectives, which is really, really nice. Now I'm going to bring to the stage our next